Data slicers are a highly useful visual filter feature that makes datasets more accessible to users while adding a simple way for the workbook creators to direct and suggest input locations. When combined with pivot tables and the Excel data model, slicers can function as an integral part of a workbook-based solution. This table contains a list of stores, fruits, and the prices charged for each fruit by that store on a given date. As it is a data table, we have access to the drop-down filters on each column, so it's already quite easy to filter down to, say, Kroger's store prices on a given day. But I have an issue with this. If I've just opened this workbook and the previous user has saved it with the filters in place, to figure out what exact filters they used, I have to click on the drop-down boxes and figure it out myself. This only has one filter, which isn't bad, but what if the previous user applied 6 filters across dozens of different combinations of entries? Well, that's where the slicer comes in handy. Let's clear these filters out, go to the Table Tools Design tab, and I'm going to click on the Insert Slicer under the Tools button. This brings up my Insert Slicers window, which has a list of checkboxes next to each of my field names. A slicer functions like a filter, but provides a more visual and friendly interface for working with them. So the fields we might want to cut into would be the fruit, the store name, and the date fields. So I'm going to select these 3, and I'm going to press OK. Doing so has brought up 3 new objects, each with the unique values from each of these selected fields. So fruit has apple, banana, cherries, grapes, store name has the stores, and dates has my dates. Additionally, selecting any one of these slicer windows will bring up a new ribbon section for slicer tools with an options tab. Under the slicer options, we have some different slicer styles, some arrangement options, and some sizing controls. The slicer styles can be useful for differentiating the different filters from one another. Right now, all of my slicers are the same color of default blue. I'm going to select my fruit slicer, and I'm going to use a green style for that since it kind of works with food. This gives it a different appearance to make it break out from the pack. Then I can select my store name and give it an orange-yellow style. Again, just making it different so the user can quickly and easily identify which slicer they're working with. The arrangement options are useful for aligning and defining the order that these slicers appear on the screen in. For example, if I drag my fruit to the store name, it slides behind the store name slicer. Now, under the Arrange options, if I use the Bring Forward, it puts it above the store name, and Sending Backward puts it back behind the store name. This way you can create filters that sit on top or below or above or around each other, depending on how you want your slicers to work. Now, the Align Objects functionality works by selecting multiple sliders. Now, the Align Object will realign slicers, so I've moved my fruit down a little bit, and if I select all 3, I can go to my Align options and choose Align Top. And this aligns them all to the topmost slicer. If I bring my fruit back down and select all 3 and do Align Middle, it's going to align them kind of in the middle of them all. Now, under the Align, the groupings, these ones along the top, are for vertically oriented slicers, while these here in the middle are for horizontally aligned slicers. And you can also distribute them horizontally so that they're more equally spaced and just generally make them look nice. The last 2 groupings to the right in the slicer tools are the buttons and size groupings. These allow us to modify the size of the buttons and the windows themselves. Of course, the windows can be resized by selecting them and dragging them, but the buttons can't be resized that way. Now for our fruits, they're pretty short names, so maybe we want thinner buttons. In fact, let's go ahead and say that I'd want the fruit buttons to show up in more than one column. Here in the Columns field under the Buttons grouping, I can increase that to any value that I so desire, and it will shrink the buttons and make it appear in that size. For these, I'm going to select the column of 2, because that seems to work well with our name size. Now, these buttons are kind of small, so maybe I want them to be a little taller. I can adjust the height, say to 1/2 inch, and get nice, largely sized buttons that are easy to click and easy to read. You can do this with any of the filters to create buttons that make sense for the data held within that filter. So now what do these slicers do besides looking pretty? Well, each of the items in these windows is a button. Clicking on any one of them will cause the linked table to filter down to that selection. So if I select Kroger from the store name, my table immediately filters down to Kroger. Visually, this is displayed by the filter having a highlighted Kroger button and Tom Thumb and Walmart being empty. I can verify the filter approach by going to my table, clicking the drop down on store name, and seeing that only Kroger is selected. Now the benefits do not cease here. Beyond the filter having been applied to the table and the visual information for the store name, my fruit name contains some information as well. All 4 buttons are highlighted in green, but the cherries button is grayed out. Now why is that? Well, let's go look to our table for an answer. Within our table, we can do the drop down on the fruit and see that cherries does not exist for Kroger. There are no cherry entries for that store name. The slicer indicates that we still have it as an active field since it's highlighted in green, but by graying itself out, it indicates that no entries for that value exist. We've applied one filter by store name. Now what happens if we select additional slicer filters? Well, selecting Apple, we can see that they simply get layered on top of the previously selected slicers, just like filters would. And we can select multiple items from any of the slicers by holding the Control key and clicking the different buttons. So if I wanted to add Walmart back to my query, holding the Control key and clicking on Walmart extends my filter to be for both Kroger and Walmart. These slicers add a whole new visual element that makes working with tables, pivot tables, and other data sets far easier and far more intuitive, while creating a whole new approach to designing the user interactions with those data sets. Slicers can be used with data tables, pivot tables, and pivot charts to create very user-friendly interactive data sets, whether helping to identify certain patterns, such as a missing fruit within a data set, or giving a user a way to apply selective controls, such as specifying a subset of data or subset of rules to use in an analysis. Appropriately placed slicers create power user data features that are accessible and useful to the most novice of Excel users.